And I thought the run presentation button was up here.
One would think.
Yeah. No, not behind there. Wait, am I going crazy? Oh, there we go.
Swear, okay. Weird.
All right. I will be going over distribution, bucket sort, and radix sort, which are both distribution sorts. What is a distribution sort? A distribution sort uses one property of each element and then assigns it to a particular category depending on where it fits. So it's can either be the starting character, or we're just looking for something that each item has in common. So here's an example. Mrs. Johnson's fourth grade class is going on a field trip to McDonald's as a celebration for their test. She has promised each student a different tiered reward depending on how well they did on their tests. Instead of comparing each score individually, i.e. a comparison sort, she can create a pile for each letter grade and sort them based on that, which is a distribution sort. So the different types of distribution sorts have bucket sort, which is a sort that creates separate buckets for each group, and then it places those buckets back into the array. And then a radix sort, which is a bucket sort with integers. So when should I use a bucket sort? So if an array is too dense, then it won't really work. So we're not looking for something too dense or too sparse, where if there's a lot of difference between each character. So for bucket sort, it's when you kind of have a set of data that is just like kind of very equally distributed and can be lumped into different categories. So how the bucket sort works. So you start with your initial array, and then we have one ranging from like 1 to 50 in that range. So setting up each individual bucket to kind of cover the categories that separates it, that kind of allows us to work with them individually. And then once we've placed each item in a bucket, we then can take each individual bucket and do a comparison sort. And that way we have left stuff, so we're not having to kind of go through the whole bulk of everything like we would in a one-to-one search for the entire array. And then once we're done, we put it all back into the original array. So here's a visualized diagram of it. We're starting with that. So in our 0 to 16 bucket, we have the 3 and 9. And then same with the rest of the ones, just lump them up into their categories. And then we're able to, like, it's much easier to sort between 2 items and 3 items than it would be the entire array. And then we return it to get the array in order. And then for a radix sort, works a little differently. So not going too deep. So starting with, I might have put the wrong image. So you can go 2 ways through a radix sort, where starting with the most significant digit approach or the least significant, where either the first, so basically the first integer, or first in the line of the integer, first number of the integer, or the last, which would be the least significant. So an example starting with the least significant, taking the last number, so 0. So anything with a 0, then up to 3, 4, 5. And then the next sort, we move over to the next item, next digit and the number, then sorting, and so on and so on. And so each step, we get it put into its place. And there isn't the same lovely image, but there are a couple of visualizations. So with the bucket sort visualization, it shows you grabbing it to its individual buckets. I think I can speed this up a little bit. Ooh. So we can see the items with the multiple buckets that each bucket. And then once we finish placing them in the buckets, we can go through and check within each individual buckets and get our array returned in order. And then for the Radix sort visualization, it goes by sorting by each integer. So we have basically our buckets based by like a single integer, and then goes through and sorts by the next digits and the next digits. So, yeah, could be doing this with a comparison sort and just sitting there for minutes on end. Well, and that's our Radix sort. So you can jump into the code pen. I have one pulled up already. And then it created my 3 buckets, do bucket A, B, and C, and run through the array. And if it's less than 0, push it into array I. And if it's, then just move up to, like, it was between 0 and 8, push it into B. And else, oh yeah, I'm totally wrote this really fast. And then if it's greater than 8, push it into bucket C. And then went and used our handy dandy sort function for integers. And then was trying to do it the quick, or whatever way I had in mind, to push it back into, or push each individual bucket in order back into array, but I didn't remember off the top of my head how to do that. So yeah, that's the slightly completed almost to conclusion example. We just have to push each bucket into, but I got far enough to at least show you what I was doing and how bucket sort works. Any questions?
That's pretty good. If we do, we want to just finish this? Like, I think we're almost there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
not most of it done.
The only thing, what I was stuck on is just an easy way to push an entire array into another array. I was trying to do it without having to go through another loop. I
think what you could do, since they're already sorted, I think you could just concat them.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just concatenating them.
What was
so you do like, yeah, array.cat, and then in parentheses you can just add all of the values separated by commas. So you could do like bucket A, bucket B, bucket C.
Okay. and typo.
Then you need to return it,
Okay.
and that should work. Oh. Huh.
Well, time to hunt for typos. um,
I think it has to do with your for loop. Because you're incrementing. Well, no, that should be.
oh, well.
Oh, you have to set array. So like with your concat, it'll need to be on the same line as like your declaration for array, because it creates like that returns a new array. Or what you could do, I think.
Would it help to just create a new array for the concat?
I think if you just set like array equal to the concat that you've got.
Oh, like reassign it.
Right. Yeah.
Like that?
Yep. But concat has to be run on an existing array. So what you could do is just do bucket A, and then like concat bucket B and bucket C.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna work.
I think that will work.
Okay.
Hey, it works.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
So that's bucket sort.
Yeah. Very good.
So what are the benefits of bucket sort?
I think it has a decent complexity, but it's
With space or time or both? Or...
that I don't remember. It wasn't in the GA much on.
That's weird. Why wouldn't include it?
Well, I might have missed like the exact. But I think it was like if you have a very specific like clump of data, it allows you to tackle each individually instead of having to go piece by piece, because I think that's where you get snagged up with a lot of time. So it's kind of compartmentalizing the sort into a smaller chunk. So it does help with space complexity.
Okay.
I think. Here we go. I will send over what I have on that. So on that page, if you scroll down a little bit, there's the different sorting algorithms and their time complexity and their space complexity.
Oh,
nice.
This one's fairly efficient, though. Both of them are, Bucket and Radix. as far as like time complexity goes.
Okay.
One of the better ones, actually.
I understand bucket, but the radix one was confusing.
I think radix sort is kind of weird to like visualize in your brain.
Yeah.
Bucket sort, you're like, oh, it's going on a bucket. Like,
Right, yes.
That one was confusing for me a little bit because of the next stages, but I think it's kind of working. Like if you have a bunch of 3-digit numbers, it goes through. If you do it from starting with the first number, you're lumping all of the like 100s, 200s, 300s, but it can also do it with like 2 digits and 1 digits in there, and then you go through each individual bucket and sort those based on the second digit, and then sort within those the third digit. So it's kind of like buckets, but it's doing buckets of specific integers.
okay. Okay.
There are no specific questions that want like a radix sort and LeetCode, unfortunately. So I was thinking, we could do a coding challenge sometime using radix, but no.
Bucket's cool. I like the bucket sort.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop recording.